Esther Arinaga. Esther is the daughter of a master furniture builder who came from Korea to work on the sugar plantations in 1905, and a picture bride who arrived in Hawaii at age 18. As both a staff attorney and board member, she was indispensable to the growth of Lowell. Most relevant today, she and Pat developed the idea of the legal clinic with Reverend Amy Wake and Reverend Tom Choi, joining the First United Methodist Church and the National Justice for Our Neighbors program, with the local personnel who now comprise our current board and staff. Esther and Pat then undertook the arduous work of creating the infrastructure for the clinic. Esther literally fortified and nourished us for months with dinner meetings at her home in Arcadia, where the groundwork and principles of the organization and hiring of staff was thrashed out and implemented. She secured the architect for our splendid office and painstakingly oversaw its renovations. Esther's other contributions are also immense, wide-ranging, and varied. Initially a criminal justice planner, she became a member of the first State Commission on the Status of Women and has served on the board of directors of the Hawaii Council on Humanities, Hawaii Public Radio, and the American Civil Liberties Union. In her mother's memory, she created a fund for the pursuit of Korean women's literature at the University of Hawaii, and she endowed a second fund to honor her father and to promote innovation and unique works at the School of Architecture. I am proud to also invoke the words of one of our honorees about another. In 2017, when Pat McManaman received the Martin Luther King Jr. Peacemaker Award from the Church of the Crossroads, Pat described Esther in these words. Esther taught us the value of hope, for you see, Esther is persistently hopeful. Her hope drives her to create solutions where there is a need, and justice where there is injustice. Hope makes Esther restless, despite decades spent dedicated to making our community better. Esther is incapable of rest. Our honorees have already widely been celebrated for their excellence. Pat was awarded the Rhoda Lewis Award for Public Service by the Hawaii Women's Legal Foundation. Esther received that organization's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019. In 2005, Bill received the coveted Daniel K. Inouye Trailblazer Award from the National Asian and Pacific Bar Association. They are all, in Pat's elegant phrase, incapable of rest and incapable of accepting the despair, hate, and xenophobia that now poison our nation. What makes our honorees memorable is not, however, the array of awards they have achieved. It is quite simply that they are endowed, in abundance, with those human qualities that inspire our trust and admiration and motivate us to follow their leadership because we believe in them and the ideals they embody. Their citizen activism is also precisely what is needed in the post-Trump era of reconstruction and democratic restoration. Their spirit and indomitable purpose is the antidote to the pandemic of cynicism and bigotry that threatens our country. And for those of us here today, their contributions have built a lasting foundation and showed the way forward for the legal clinic's future. Esther, Pat, and Bill, thank you for always holding high the welcoming torch of liberty to all those who seek the promise of America.
Good evening. I want to thank Lowell for his wonderful introduction. As always, his words beautifully crafted. And I want to thank the Board of Directors of the Legal Clinic for this award. It's very special because I am receiving this honor with Bill Hoshijo and Pat McManaman. I met Bill and Pat in 1985, more than almost 4 decades ago. And They have been an inspiration to me. Bill was the first lawyer to recognize that immigrants who were needy needed help to gain access to the legal system. Pat has been a social activist, I think, since the day she was born. We like to consider ourselves two peas in a pod because Pat is Irish and I'm Korean, but the Koreans are the Irish of the East. Long time ago, I read a poem by poet Juliet Connolly, and there was a line from that poem that made a big impression on me. It said that whoever we are, whoever we become, whatever we do, was built on the bent backs of people before us. And I'd like to share some of the bent backs I've stood on. My parents were Korean immigrants. My father was an inventor. From him, I learned whenever there is a problem, you have to work very hard to find the solution. And you work until you find the solution. From my mother, who was a political activist in Korea in 1919 during the Korean independence movement, I learned that whenever you support a cause, you have to have a lot of passion, a great deal of passion. In college, I had a wonderful professor named Alan Saunders who taught political science, and he said, in order to improve political justice, to achieve political justice, you have to understand the political process, and you have to work very hard to understand that process and work within that process. Alan was the founder of the Hawaii chapter of the ACLU, and he was also a force behind the establishment of the Ethics Commission. Aquan McElrath was a wonderful, strong leader for the labor union, ILWU. She started as a social worker, but she became an activist for the union workers, finding them justice and better wages. Aquan had a very loud voice, and from her I learned it's okay to lift your voice as long as the words you speak are true and correct. 4 years ago, two people met over lunch, and that was the beginning of the legal clinic. And it's over the bent backs of many, many lawyers, social workers, ministers, people from the community that the legal clinic has grown and has grown to be successful in its work. I think it's their bent backs that are carrying forward the mission of the legal clinic.